Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Walt Disney Imagineering, Creative Shows Studio Executive, Nancy Cerruto.
Good evening. Tonight we've seen an impressive array of creative spark and amazing projects, so there should be no surprise that our last award of the evening is the Buzz Prize Thea Award for a lifetime of distinguished achievements. Bob Rogers profoundly stated the objective of the Thea Award is simple, to find excellence and celebrate it. Keeping true to that objective, I can think of no better recipient of this year's award and someone we celebrate for excellence, Phil Hettema. Disneyland, as it turns out, and Phil Hettema were both introduced to the world around the same time. And I'm sure on that joyful day, Phil's family knew he'd come already bearing a very special creative gene. The gene which tonight we interpret as the creative spark, the spark that ignited Phil's creative DNA. That DNA enlivens a dreamer, a musician, an adventurer, an artist, an entertainer, a showman, and a patent holder. Some might interpret that D, that DNA, as Disneyland.
Disneyland opened the same time Phil was born. I remember him as a young kid. He knew everything about Disneyland. He read everything there was to know.
The thought of being able to create those kind of worlds and experiences was something that really sparked my imagination. I got a part-time job at Disneyland on the day I turned 18, and I've never looked back.
With a distinguished 40-year career, Phil has changed what it means to create for the themed entertainment industry. Prior to forming his own company in 2002, Phil was Senior Vice President at Attraction Development for Universal Studios theme parks worldwide, responsible for creative development of all attractions and major shows. Phil feels as comfortable envisioning islands of adventure as he does a view from the One World Observatory or from a World War II bomber to an intimate touring exhibit. He often jokes how he never does the same thing once. Even that drive to create something unique and use innovation, the fundamental priority for Phil is never losing sight of the people who matter most, the guests. Phil is a friend to many, an inspirational leader, a generous philanthropist, and holds deeply what the sense of family means. Be it his biological family, his industry family, or our creative family at large, he creates an environment that fosters success. Continually reaffirming the collaborative process or always paying it forward, Phil not only talks the talk, he walks the walk.
It was so much fun over these years working with you. I mean, I have had such a blast with you, Guy. And the great thing about you is when I come up with a real bad idea, you sit there and you make it into a great idea. It becomes something that people all over the world flock to, ride the movies. In this case, I guess over the last few years of Truth Be Told, the world has been riding Phil Hettema.
He just is an amazing ball of energy and goodwill and talent.
Does is he really loves this business and the people in it, and he's constantly finding ways to encourage all of us at what we do.
The part that I like the most about Phil is his diversity, is that he is a performer, he's an artist.
Friends, colleagues and associates and family, please join me in welcoming to the stage my dear friend and this year's recipient of the Buzz Prize Thea Award for a lifetime of distinguished achievements, Phil Hettema.
Thank you. I know it's been a long and wonderful evening, but I do have a few things to say. First, thank you to the TEA and the Thea Committee for this incredible honor. I am very humbled, and I cannot tell you how much this means to me, especially to be here surrounded by my family and my very special friends and my peers, colleagues over the past 40 years that are in this room tonight. There are so many people who have made a difference in my life. I want and need to thank all of them. But if I did, we would be here until Star Wars Land opens. So if you'll go and look in your program on page 21, there's a link and a QR code, and you can go to the website and see a list of so many people that have meant so much to me and to whom I owe so much. And everything you just saw there, by the way, certainly was not me. There were thousands of people that made that possible, and I just stand on their shoulders. So I do want to tell you a story. Many years ago, there was a little kid. He was quiet, pretty curious, nerdy, and relatively happy, but he also grew up in a world where he wasn't sure he would ever find a place he really belonged. Then one day, that nerdy, gay little kid walked into a place not very far from this room and found a world where he could be anything he imagined, where magic seemed to be around every corner, where the future was joyful and possible, and where the impossible could happen. And as he grew up with visit after visit, he really found it to be an amazing place, where just for a few hours at least, he really belonged. But even then, he never dreamed how profoundly and how powerfully this world he had discovered would become part of his life. All those years ago, I never imagined that world of imagination would become real for me and that it would be much more than a dream. It would be a career and a home. All those years ago, I never dreamed that I could spend my life working with the most creative people on the planet. I never dreamed that it could take me to virtually every continent, visiting, meeting, and learning from cultures, people, and friends from around the world. Learning how much more alike the world is than it is different, and learning how to tell a story in our special way, with the power to touch both head and heart at the same time. I never dreamed I could build a team who would become a second family to me, joining with me to pursue bigger dreams and tell powerful stories. And I never dreamed I could contribute and help to lead the Ryman Arts Foundation, passing on the legacy of some of my personal heroes to future generations. My story, which has led me to this very special world which we all share, has a happy ending, and I do not take it for granted. You know, there are two things people say to me all the time. After the first one, which is, "Did you play basketball?" The second thing, after I tell them what they do, is, "You must have such a fun job." You've all heard that, right? Well, it is fun sometimes, but it's also hard. At least it's hard to do it right. What we do is complicated, has a million aspects and parts that have to mesh invisibly but precisely to ignite the spark that our stories can have. It's hard, and sometimes it seems like it would be easier to take shortcuts. We've all been there at that dark moment of a project when it just seems like there's no way it's ever going to lift off, and you wonder why you ever got into this crazy business. And we've all been part of projects that didn't fully realize their potential, and we know how painful that can be. But we learn from those moments, and we work even harder, and then we're there at the birth of a new story where it all comes together, and all the hard work, all the hurdles, and all the "you'll never pull this off" doubt fall away, and the magic happens. Now that is fun. But with that fun and that hard work comes some obligations. These are goals I believe we need to embrace in our industry and trust and make sure that I know we're committed to these things at THG as well. We have an obligation to do our work at the highest quality we can and to tell our stories with integrity. We can't take shortcuts, and we can't rely on the greatest, latest idea by somebody else to be the right way to tell the story that we have to tell. Our industry has often been accused of creating fake worlds, and we seem to be living in a world of fake news and alternative facts. But when we tell our stories with quality and integrity, they're powerful and they can change lives. We have an obligation not to rely on cool technology just for technology's sake. Because we all know technology, which is hot today, will be old within 6 months. But we need to use great technology as a tool to make great stories even more powerful. And this is so important. We have an obligation to make sure that we build teams that reflect the diversity of our audiences. We cannot expect our stories to be heard by the whole world if our teams telling the story don't mirror the full spectrum of our audience. All of us here in this room are living our own stories, even as we're creating experiences and telling stories to the rest of the world. What an exciting and rare privilege we share. The story of this nerdy kid is that he grew up to be the luckiest guy in the world. And even better, that there are more chapters to be written, and we're all going to write them together. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Stage manager just informed me that someone from your early career here that wants to see you. And as you know, Phil, this is the year of the dog. Hint, hint. Oh, yes. And what the audience may not know is that when you were a Disney cast member, you worked on a collar design that Pluto still wears today. And Pluto is delighted to present you with a commemorative collar for your extra special work on this design.
Congratulations, Phil.